And we're excited to share some information with you that you probably will forget shortly after we tell you, but we will provide this, we will be recording this session, and we will have a faculty orientation handbook that we will circulate with the majority of this information in the next couple of days. I think it's what, 9:02, Travis? Are you good to start? Did anyone have any comments before we get going? Thing needed to be said? Alrighty, okay, take it away, Travis.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. I guess if first we could, I'd prefer to know who I'm speaking with. If people don't mind turning on your cameras, please do. If you don't, that's fine. But if we could just go through and introduce yourselves to everyone, and I will go through. So I'll start. I'm Travis Ridgen, the Acting Dean of Science. And Jacqueline, did you introduce yourself?
I did not. I'm Jacqueline Blundell. I'm the Acting Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Studies.
Just trying to find my, aha, there we go. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Foss. I am the Communications Advisor in the Faculty of Science.
Philip.
Hi guys, I'm Philip McCallum. I'm the Grant Facilitation Assistant. I'm the one sending all the annoying emails to you guys.
Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jen Major. I'm one of our 2 grant facilitation officers for the faculty.
Lynn.
Hi, that's me. I'm Lynn Frizzell, and I'm the other grants facilitator for Faculty of Science. And welcome to Memorial, everyone.
Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a new faculty member with the Department of Earth Science. Hope you can hear me there.
Yep, perfect. Kartik.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Karthik, and I'm a new faculty, just joined the Department of Computing Science.
Laura.
Hi everybody, I'm Laura. I am a recent PhD grad from MUN and a new faculty member in the Department of Science and Psychology.
Noah.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm a recent faculty hire at the Computer Science Department at MUN.
Is it Chang? We can't hear you.
Hello everyone, good morning. Hi, Dr. Friedgen. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, okay. That's perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chang. I'm a new faculty member from Department of Computer Science. Nice to meet you guys, everyone.
Great. Suzanne?
Hi, I'm the Acting Associate Dean of Science, and I'm also a professor in biology. Nice to see you all here. Welcome to MUN.
Terrence?
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry. I'm also in the herd of new computer science hires.
And I think I missed Pavan.
Hi, yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Pavan. I'm a new faculty in the Department of Biochemistry. Sorry, I have a lousy internet connection, no video. And nice to meet you all.
Okay, great. I was hoping that would take up 15 minutes, but I guess we're only at 7. Do we have slides?
I'll start sharing them right now.
Okay. So welcome everyone to is everyone in St. John's yet? I know some of you were hired very recently and you might not be here, but we look forward to you arriving. It's a good thing you're not here today. It's a bit mucky out after a phenomenal summer that we had. Okay, I guess the next slide. And the next one. Right, so here is the Dean of Science office, and I think it's up to date. If not, we will have it up to date. There's been a lot of change with staff members, as well as the three deans that are in the office right now. I think you may have noticed that our three of us are acting. So I'm the acting dean. Actually, that's not entirely true. Jacqueline is interim associate dean of research, but Suzanne and I are acting deans, at least for the next year. And I think you're going to hear from most of these people. Really, what I just wanted to very briefly talk to you about was the next slide, and I mean very briefly, not to take up too much time. Actually, Philip, if you can just, I don't know, click through and put all that stuff up. Oh, there we go. So this is just a little diagram showing, you know, what is typically thought of as our jobs as faculty members. And it's supposed to be to scale with about 40% teaching, 40% research, and 40% service. And I just wanted to comment on the parts that overlap, because I think this is, at least in my opinion, and other people can share their opinions as well, but I think that's where the most exciting stuff happens, and sometimes the most fun. So yes, we do our own research and we do our own teaching, and we do service in order to serve the university, the faculty, your department, and the community, and scientific communities, as well as our local communities, et cetera, et cetera. But in the midst, there's a lot that can be done. So in between teaching and research, there's a scholarship of teaching and learning. This also involves teaching research students. I mean, a lot of people consider supervising graduate students and undergraduate researchers as teaching, and of course it is. And that's part of our job, is to produce well-trained researchers to go out and do more science. And of course, bringing your research to the classroom so that we can inspire the undergraduates and the graduates to perhaps take on a life in science. Between research and service, of course, there's things that we're probably aware of, but reviewing manuscripts. But I'd like to bring your attention, reviewing grant applications, especially internally. We will be calling on you to, maybe not this year, because you're all going to be writing your own grant applications, but in the future, to review grant applications for your peers. And of course, sitting on, I say NSERC panels, but all kinds of different granting agency panels. And then between teaching and service, there is, and hopefully over the next little while, as we do our strategic planning in the Faculty of Science, some curriculum change and review, participation in teaching seminars and discussions. And that, you know, at the beginning, you can, I would urge you to go to some of these teaching seminars put on by either the Faculty of Science or CITL, our Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. They're a wealth of knowledge there and advice, and to help you with your teaching. But then as you become more seasoned teachers, bring whatever you're doing to and give a seminar, something that works, even if it's small. And if it's something, you know, that you're innovating in your teaching, bring it to Kelly, and Kelly will write a story on what you're doing. And that's how this spreads around, and we really innovate our teaching and service our students the best. And then there's outreach, which is a lot of fun in the intersection of teaching and service, where we can go into communities and talk to younger students. A lot of times we're bringing students into the university to show off what we have here, including you, our faculty members. So try and keep that in the back of your mind, to what you can do in order to excite students in primary levels right up to high school, and to get them to come here and study science. And then in the intersection of all of those, there's outreach involving your research, there's CBC interviews, and you may in the future take on some administrative roles such as headships or deputy heads or even dean. I hear there's going to be an opening in about a year. That's really all I had to say besides welcoming everyone. And I would open it up to questions if anyone has any questions for me. I think I've met most of you during the interview process, most if not all of you. But if you have any questions, please, you can ask now, or our office is always open. You can always email me or pop down and see us. Good, crystal clear.
I'll ask one sort of naive question.
Sure, Terry.
Just before this slide, you mentioned acting and interim. What's the difference?
So what acting means is that, as far as I understand it, is that, so Mark Abrams, who went about a year and a half ago to become provost pro tempore, he is still around. So he hasn't actually resigned his position as dean. So while he's still here, I'm acting in that position. An interim means, so Jacqueline was replacing Len, so she was acting up until about a month or two ago when he became, when he resigned his position and became head of physics. So she's interim. And I was associate dean undergraduate, so Suzanne is acting in that position while I'm acting as the dean.
Great, thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, I'll turn it over to, I guess, Jacqueline, since she'll know who's next.
Yeah, and I think it's me, actually. So again, welcome. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the makeup of the university's administration. And then I'll talk a little more specifically about the Faculty of Science. As I mentioned before, I'm the interim Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Studies, so I'll focus mostly on research and graduate studies. So you're probably all familiar with our president, Dr. Timmins. Under Dr. Timmins, or I guess reporting to Dr. Timmins, are a variety of vice presidents, including those of the Marine Institute, Grenfell, the Advanced and External Relations, Indigenous Affairs, Administration, Research, and Academic. Academic is also, the VP Academic is also considered the provost at this institution. So the two that I work with the most, Philip, if you want to advance the screen, is the VP Research and VP Administration. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about those two groups specifically, because within the first year you will get very familiar, I think, as you apply for grants, open research accounts, deal with ethics, these particular portfolios. The VP Research is Dr. Neil Bose, and the VP Administration is Mr. Kent Decker. If you are interested in contacting any of these administrative heads, feel free to Google MUN administration and you will have no idea about who runs the university, because it is extremely confusing and complicated and about 1,000 different sites. We tried, or at least tried to put together something a little better than this, and I got confused. So that's just to reach out to myself or Suzanne, and we can lead you in the right direction if you want to go outside of the Faculty of Science. But anyways, within the research portfolio, Dr. Bose, as I said, is the VP. his associate vice president of research is Ray Gozine, and we deal a lot with Dr. Gozine. There has also been a new hire, Dr. Ford. She is the associate vice president of Indigenous Affairs. So if you are doing any research within the university, you will likely interact with myself, Dr. Gozine, and potentially Dr. Ford. Particularly if you do field work or if you are doing research with Indigenous Affairs. Under the umbrella or under the research portfolio, there's also RGCS, which is Research Grants and Contract Services. Dr. Dave Miller is oversees that department. And again, if you are submitting a grant, anything other than really your NSERC grant will go through RGCS for approval. So Dr. Miller is the final, stamp, or his signature is the university approval that your grant meets the eligibility criteria, both of the institution as well as of the funding body. So you will get very familiar with that office. There's also tech transfer. So if you are interested in maybe patenting something, or you have questions about intellectual property, you will deal with Dr. Paula Mendoza out of the tech transfer office. Technical services, if you need something built, or a question about your lab, then that's a group that you'll probably interact with. If you're doing research, likely you're going to need ethics if you work with humans or animals. So animal care follows the IACC, or the International Association of Canadian Committee on Animal Care. Both the ICEHR or ICEHR for humans, and IACC for animal care. If you have questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or RGCS. We can point you in the correct direction about how to initiate those processes. Create is also under research portfolio. This is a group of researchers, but also research equipment that you can use, I guess, kind of like rent almost, or collaborate with on campus, run by, right now, Dr. Brent Myron. This is also part of SERI, which I can't remember what SERI stands for. If anyone does, please, you can chime in here. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, you'll learn. Sorry?
I can tell you, Jacqueline.
Oh, great.
Strategic Institutional Research Initiatives, I think.
I can't believe I forgot that.
I frequently forget it.
Anyway, so SERI is also under the research portfolio. SERI is really important if you're planning to apply for the larger foundation grants that are multi-university things, particularly things like CFI. Pam White in the office in SERI will be very helpful in those types of applications, or alliance grants. Jen Stevens, I believe, in SERI will also give you a hand with those types of applications. I think I've covered now, the research side of things. There's also like I said, administration, which you'll become very familiar with. If you get which I'm sure you will, be very successful with your grant applications, you'll need accounts open so that you can spend all that delicious money. And so financial services will help you with that. We have been in direct contact over the last year and a half with both facilities management and the risk officer when it comes to COVID-related questions. In research, we've been hit pretty hard. Same with teaching, of course, but in research, we've had to shut down our labs off and on over the last year, and the chief risk officer and facilities management have really, particularly EH&S as well, which I didn't mention yet, have been instrumental in developing safety plans and sort of back to work protocols, which I think have been quite successful, although, you know, it's been a learning process, but hopefully that will be a thing of the past and your research will get up and running and stay the course. So I think that's the major, I think I've hit on the major groups that you'll probably interact with for over the next year. Within the Faculty of Science, it's myself as Associate Dean of Research, and then there's the grants officers, as Lynn and Jen already introduced themselves, and the grants assistant, Philip. Please, please, please reach out to us and we can help in the development, not only in reviewing, you know, the last minute grammatical changes in your applications, but we would like to play a more integrative role or integral role in your applications. We can help develop your research proposals. We can help identify potential funding opportunities for your research. We can, I guess, help you craft your proposal so that it meets the criteria of the funding body. We have a lot of experience with NSERC, with both the Discovery Grant as well as the Alliance. We have expertise in CFI, in the RTI, the NSERC RTI, Alliance grants, as well as the smaller sort of nonprofit grants, things like the Alzheimer's Society, Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. And so please come to us early and often so that we can help you put your best foot forward or get your research up and running as fast as possible. I am also the graduate, so part of my title is not only research, but it's also graduate studies. And so if you are interested, which I think you probably all are, in recruiting and maintaining graduate students in your lab, I also can help with that. I work in combination with the graduate officers within your department. So each department will have a graduate officer who helps with the applications and helps, you know, if you have questions about graduate students, that's the person you would go to first. I work in combination with the graduate office as well as the School of Graduate Studies. We'll speak to you now in a bit. And so if you ever have any questions about graduate students, or if you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's lots of supports in place for graduate students. And I think that's all I have to say. Is there any questions? These, within the handbook, you'll see that there are links for each one of the things basically I've talked to you about today. So for example, if you want to apply for a grant, there'll be a link to contact Lynn, Jen, or Philip. And so hopefully that will be very helpful going forward. Any questions? Hopefully you have your EOIs or your, is it NOIs for NSERC? Well, your letters of intent in, they would have had to go in August 1st or around August 1st. I think it was actually August 3rd. If you have your letter of intent in and you're hoping to apply for an NSERC, our comprehensive deadline is September 15th. So please try and get your applications in at that date so that we can really help you develop your application, particularly as early career researchers. NSERC is really unique, and so we can help you craft your application to, I guess, promote yourself in the best possible light. Alrighty, I think we're going to hear from Lynn a little bit later anyway, so she'll give you a little bit more details about the grant specifically. But if there's nothing else, Suzanne, I think you're there, or you were, and I think you're next. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jacqueline. And yes, I am here. I'm still here. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview now on more of the undergraduate side of things. So I'll talk first about a bit of the administrative aspects that surround undergraduate curricula and sort of how things work here at MUN with regards to that. And then I'll touch a bit on research opportunities that you should be aware of. So how to engage undergrads in research. So starting off, I'm going to talk a little bit about the boxes that you see on the left here. So this is sort of to illustrate the admin structure side of things with regards to undergraduate curriculum matters. So these are representing different units on campus or different committees. So when Travis talked a bit about service and talked about different things you can do, participating or serving in some of these committees is something you may want to consider doing if you're particularly interested in undergraduate curricula and modifying things and improving things and helping the undergraduate student experience. This might be something for you to look at. So starting from the bottom, we have underneath departments, so in the 9 departments in the Faculty of Science, each of these departments has both an undergraduate studies committee and a graduate studies committee. And I'll be talking more about the undergraduate side of things, but just know that there is an equivalent for graduate studies as well. So I've been more involved with undergraduate matters myself. So each of these departments internal to the, or these committees internal to the departments meets and does a couple things. So they review the programs in the departments. If there's any sort of new courses that need to be added to programs, or maybe some need to be removed or modified, that's examined by the committee. So something that might be important for you to know if you're maybe asked to teach a course or maybe develop a new course, this process is going to be reviewed by that departmental committee. And developing a course is something, there's a template, so you need to follow sort of the instructions in the template. You need to consider all these different aspects, like what's the evaluation going to be like, you know, what are the resource implications, is there a lab associated? So you got to think of all these components of a course, and these committees can certainly help you if that's something that you're looking at developing or maybe asked to develop during your career here. So these departments also review proposals that come from other units at Memorial. So that's across the sciences, but also in other faculties. So that gives you some, you kind of get to know a little bit what's going on outside of your own department, which is interesting. And then, so these committees, they're fairly busy. So maybe not something you want to jump into very early on in your career, because it is of all the different service components that you could be participating in, this is one of the busiest, I would say. And then above that, so at the faculty level, there is a Faculty of Science Undergrad Studies Committee and a Faculty of Science Graduate Studies Committee. These committees meet every couple weeks, especially it's more busy in the fall, and review the proposals that are brought forward from the departmental committees. So these are their representatives from all the departments, and also academic program officers can attend as well. They're non-voting members, and there are students who also participate on these committees. So they review the proposals, they might suggest changes, tweak certain things, and then what gets approved at the Faculty of Science level then goes to Faculty Council. So Faculty Council is something I do encourage you to attend the meetings. So these are monthly. They're on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. It's a kind of a free time where nobody's supposed to be teaching at that in our academic calendar. And these are good to attend just to kind of get to hear what's going on at the Faculty of Science level. You get to meet other people, network across the faculty, and it just touches on all student affairs, so undergraduate, graduate, curriculum matters, any other changes going on, gives you updates from the Dean of Science, updates from various committees. So you kind of get to hear what's happening. So something you can certainly attend. You don't have to, you know, you can just go in and listen and get a feel for what's going on. So then beyond the Faculty of Council or Faculty of Science level, there's the Senate committees for undergraduate studies and the Academic Council for grad studies, which also need to review these proposals and approve them. So that's at the Senate level. So this just kind of illustrates as well, if you have a change to a course that you'd like to make, and by change, by the way, I'm not just talking about, let's say you're taking on a course that in the past had 2 midterms and I don't know, a couple of quizzes, and you want to change the evaluation structure, or you want to change a little bit the content. If you stick to what's described in the calendar, which doesn't include things like the details about evaluation, you don't need to go through this process to have these. That's up to your judgment, really, to make these changes. But if you're changing something major, for example, the prerequisites for a course, the course title, or the formal course description, which appears in the calendar, then it has to go through this process. So minor changes don't apply. But if you are putting forward a proposal to make a change or have a new course, it does have to go through all these steps. So it's going to take a while. So just something for you to keep in mind, that this process exists. All right, so I'm going to move on now to research opportunities for undergraduate students. So we have a variety of different ways that students, undergrads, can be engaged. There's actually quite a lot of opportunities for them to become engaged. And this is something that's, I think, is really good when you're looking at recruiting graduate students as well. A lot of our graduate students, or maybe varies, but a fair number of them were undergraduate students here. So it can be a really good opportunity to kind of identify someone and try to encourage them to do work in your lab. So all the departments have honors programs. So you can supervise a student through the honors program. So that's 2 semesters. The honors programs expectations are that students work the equivalent amount of time that they would put in another regular 3 credit hour course, just to give you a sense. So it's something that they do in addition to other courses during these semesters. And at the end, they produce a dissertation and they have a defense. So you can certainly supervise students through this program. There are also summer work terms that you can actually have students funded to work with you over the summer. On the bottom here, another bunch of acronyms. I'm sure that's always really fun to see acronyms, but we have the USRA. So that's Undergraduate Student Research Award. So those of you who are familiar with NSERC, maybe you all are, this is the NSERC undergraduate funding source. So we have a number of students every summer who do get USRA funding. So they get to work full-time for you over the summer. And the funding is from NSERC, but there's a small contribution from your NSERC Discovery Grant. Maybe somebody can confirm from the grants office whether you have to hold an NSERC Discovery Grant. I mean, that used to be the case. I think it might have changed.
Yeah, you're right, Suzanne. It's changed. They can hold, it can come from another source. They do have to make a contribution, but it doesn't have to be an NSERC Discovery Grant.
Okay, thanks. I thought that was the case. And the contribution is something like $12.50.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. So it's a pretty minor contribution, but you do get a whole summer's worth of work from a student. And also kind of a detail to keep in mind here is that students can't be working on their honors when they hold their USRA. So it's meant to be completely distinct from an honors project. Sorry, were you going to say something else, Lynn?
No, I think it might be $22.50.
It might be, oh, okay. Okay, and then the next opportunity for summer student funding is the SURA. So you can think of SURA as basically the same as a USRA. So that is funding that's provided from the Faculty of Science. It's, I believe, the same amount of funding. And And what's nice about the SURA is basically the students apply for a USRA, and they apply in January. And if they are not awarded a USRA, they're automatically considered for a SURA. So it's a single application process that makes them eligible for one or the other. So same concept there. They work for you over the summer. It is possible also for these students, at least the USRA, I'm not sure about the SURA, to do it over a semester, but there are particular conditions there. Also, other funding opportunities. So not specifically for the summer here, but MUSEP. So MUSEP is the Memorial University Career Experience Program. So that's through Student Life. So it's not Faculty of Science specific, it's Memorial wide. And the MUSEPs are, they provide undergraduate students with either 40 hours of paid work or 80 hours of paid work over the course of the semester. So in order to be able to have MUSEP students working with you, you have to have to apply for MUSEP positions. There's a little bit of a contribution as well that you need to make. You basically post a short description of what the student would be doing. They apply, so it's like a job application process. You get a list of all the students who've applied, and this is in the beginning of each semester. You get the list of these applicants. You can proceed through an interview and then hire them to work 40 to 80 hours. So it's really a way to get the students to have sort of a taste of what research is like. And it could be something that if you've got graduate students that want to do a little bit of, you know, a side project or something and involve an undergrad student, this could be a really great way to get them to kind of see if this is for them and if they like research. And then you can, you know, keep fostering their development as researchers through an honors or grad students. Okay, and the last acronym we see here, SWASP, that one I'm less familiar with. It's also through Student Life, but it's the Student Work and Service Program. So I believe it's specific for student parents. So if undergrad, and is it only for undergrads? I think so, I'm not sure. The SWASP, yes. So it's undergrad student parents. And it also is a paid position. It's funded by the provincial government. So lots of different opportunities to involve undergraduate students in your research programs. And the website on the bottom there gives you a is something you can look at these in more detail. And yeah, if you do have questions, I know this is a lot of information when you're just starting out, and at least I wasn't always remembering all the details of this as time went by, because there's so much you're dealing with as a new faculty member. But if you have any questions, or if you feel like, oh, I remember there was something about these work positions, I don't remember what it's called, just feel free to send me an email, and I'll try to help you out and direct you with that. So yeah, welcome. We're very excited to have you, and I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. And if are there any questions? I'm pretty new in my role. You can kind of tell I don't have all the answers, but I'll try. Any questions? Just feel free anytime. Drop me an email. So I think that's all I had for my to present to you. I'm not sure what's coming up next.
Andrew Kim is scheduled to speak next. We have about a 5-minute lull. I know he has some stuff for graduate student orientation today. So
I'm here, Philip.
Oh, he's here? Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Do you have any slides you'd like to share?
I have a couple of slides, so I can share my screen if you like.
Sure. Let me stop this, and I will give you access to that.
and these slides aren't terribly interesting, so, but they're just some speaking points. Hi everyone. How many new faculty do we have here today? Just out of my curiosity.
Hi, Andrew. I'm counting 10 new faculty members.
Oh wow. Okay.
Lynn.
So that's a lot more than the last time I did this. So hi everyone. My name is Andrew Kim. I work with the grad school, and I was asked by the Faculty of Science to deliver just a brief intro on the role the grad studies plays in the university and how it can support you as instructors and supervisors of graduate students. And so this first slide is just a sort of a brief overview of what the grad school does. So not unlike many other universities where there's sort of the centralized grad studies office, we're responsible for all graduate students at the university. We're a clearinghouse for graduate student records. We provide, along with the academic units, lifecycle supports for graduate students. So everything from application and admissions, comprehensive and thesis exams to doctoral defenses and graduations and final audits. We also have some responsibility for the formal appeals processes, the investigations, conflict resolutions. And we provide support for the development of new programs, administer their approval through the normal channel of committees that universities go through to approve such things. And then we also administer all types of graduate student pay and awards, including the baseline fellowships, which you would all be eligible for when you're recruiting new graduate students. In terms of faculty resources, there's a lot on our website. It may take too long to go through them all. So, but the best link that you can start with is the first one on the first bullet here, SGS faculty and staff resources. We also have training for faculty members who are interested in improving their supervisor efficacy. So we have both a formal program in graduate student supervision that we paused last year, but had been running for about 5 years prior. And then we also have an agreement with Athabasca University to do a less involved supervisor institute. This is a 12 workshop program. I think it's a couple of hours each workshop, whereas the program in, or PGSS, the program in graduate student supervision is a semester long and fairly intense. There's about 18 faculty and staff in the grad school, and everybody does something a little bit different. But I know if you're new to the university, you have enough new people to sort of remember names and responsibilities for. So the best advice I can offer is if you need help from SGS somehow, contact either myself, akim@mon.ca, or Carol Sullivan, who's stuck in Toronto at the moment, so she couldn't be here this morning. But at Carol@mon.ca, both have pretty simple emails, but or alternatively just email sgs@mon.ca. I mean, since last March, that email address has been monitored 7 days a week, so if you email, somebody will get back to you fairly quickly. That's all I had, Philip. Hope that wasn't too brief.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone have any questions for Andrew? Well, thank you for your time today, Andrew. Doesn't appear we have anyone to ask any questions.
Okay.
But either way, they have all your contact information and some resources there. Thank you. Take care.
And can I just interrupt for 1 second? I have to tell you that the support staff or the administrative support in the university is exceptional overall. And so if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But in particular, Andrew Kim is very, very helpful and extraordinarily nice and will bend over backwards to find any questions or the answers to any of your questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out to him. I can't say enough good things about SGS in general, but also in particular Andrew Kim. He's awesome. Philip, are we a little bit ahead of time?
Yes. So right now we have Keith Powers scheduled to present next at 10 a.m. I don't see him in the group just yet. So we have about a 13-minute lull here.
Okay, can I just ask people if they want, they can turn on their cameras, the new faculty. And does anyone have any new graduate students starting in September or honor students or have questions about how maybe to recruit or what the best way to get these students? Any concerns? I know when I started, that was a really big concern because I couldn't figure out how to balance teaching service, although there's not a lot of service in your first year or so, hopefully, and also research. And so it was really odd for me to have other students doing or other people doing my research for me. That was a really weird concept. And so, yeah. Anybody have any concerns or everything okay? So we have a few minutes.
Yeah. Hey, Jacqueline. So yeah, hi, this is Chang. So maybe I can have one question about like hiring a graduate student. So are there any deadlines like in the university or in different departments for hiring the students? Like for example, are there any deadlines for the student to apply for the graduate program?
Right, that's a great question. And so each department does things a little bit differently. So I do recommend you talk to Shireen, your head, so Dr. Bungie, or the graduate officer, who I'm forgetting the name right now. But anyway, but for example, in psychology, the deadline I believe is January 1st, but that deadline is only for SGS funding. You can take grad students anytime that you want, as long as you don't need or don't care about SGS funding. So I could take someone right now into my lab, but they wouldn't be eligible for SGS funding. So SGS baseline is between what, $6,000-$10,000. So that's really helpful. So I generally don't take students outside of that window of the application of January 1st so that they go in the pool to be discussed amongst your department or amongst your probably graduate committee sometime in sort of early winter. But as far as I know, there is no deadline specifically. You could take students anytime. But again, the SGS funding is tagged to that January 1st deadline. At least it is in psychology. I don't know, Suzanne, what's it like in biology?
Yeah, so we have students, as long as they start at the beginning of a semester, they can start any time. So they could start in January, they could start in May or September. So that gives you a couple of opportunities there. It's not like all the grad students start in September. Okay. But does that help answer your question?
Yeah. That's very helpful. So
Yeah.
I think Susan talked about a little bit about the SGS before in her presentation. So is that a kind of funding supporting, like, is that a kind of funding the students need to apply for to support their specific, like, is it for the graduate or for the undergraduate?
The SGS, that's the School of Grad Studies. So that's baseline support that the grad students receive as part of their total funding package. So that's only for master's and PhD students.
I see.
So if you have a student you want to take on, one of the things you need to do is put together a funding package. So normally most in most cases I know there are exceptions, but most cases the students do get that SGS funding because it's just so nice to have. I mean, more than almost half of their package supported by mine, right?
For sure.
And then you can include TA positions, which are paid. So you can play with that if you want. They can have up to, I think, 4 TA positions in a year, or you may want them to just have 1, so they're, you know, less occupied with TAing, and then you provide the balance from your grants. So that's usually the way it works out. You have to work out a funding package, and talk with your department grad committee or deputy head graduate. They can give you the details and what the standards are, because the standards are a little bit different in different departments in terms of like what the baseline SGS support is, and maybe how many TA positions students normally get. So I think that's variables you can play with a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
so you put together that package, and then that gets approved by this graduate committee, and then they get the letter, and then you can officially start. So I don't believe it's possible to start at a time other than the beginning of a formal academic semester. I think like postdocs, you could start basically any time. But yeah,
Okay.
normally for students, it has to be associated with the semester. Does that help a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Susan. Just a
So,
follow-up.
yeah.
Sorry, just a follow-up question. Sorry, Shan. You want to say something?
No, go ahead. I could take.
Oh, sorry. Just a follow-up question. So, am I understanding this correctly? So the SGS funding is different from the TA-ship, because typically, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, at least when I went to grad school, essentially I had to do a TA to get the sort of the funding. So just want to make sure.
Right. No, it's possible for students to not have any TA ships at all. It's really you as a supervisor, and depending on what kind of funding you have, you can decide whether or not they are going to be. So it's not tied to the SGS funding. I know what you're saying, because sometimes in some universities it is a condition of getting support is they
So
have
the
to.
student gets SGS even though they don't do a TA.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's recommended to have a TA, just because it's such a great experience, generally speaking, for the graduate student. They get a sense of how labs work, or how mentoring students, or interacting with undergraduate students. I think it's an important part of the graduate education, but it's not, like as Suzanne said, it's not necessary. And different departments have different ways of allocating TAs. So you really need to speak to your department head or the graduate officer on how it's done in your particular department. But it does add nicely to your financial package as well, if you're trying to be competitive or whatever. As an ECR, you probably don't have a ton of money yet, and so it's quite helpful. Jen also mentioned that for early career researchers, you get a one-time sort of freebie for a PhD student. It's called the President's Award. And so if you do have a student who is exceptional and you would like to offer a PhD, or offer that student an opportunity to do a PhD with you, then that funding, and it's for one student, and that funding is available through SGS, which is quite nice.
Yeah, sure. As Jacqueline said before, there are specific deadlines for students to apply for the funding through SGS, right?
Yes. Yeah. At least that's the way it's done in psychology. I assume that's done the same throughout each department. Yes, so I can take someone in the spring semester, but if they didn't apply for meet the January 1st deadline for their application, they are not considered for SGS baseline funding. And so they really want to hit that January 1st deadline. I think it's January 1st. It could be January 15th. It's early January. But again, that's on the SGS website. I could,
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I might add, oh, sorry. I just wanted to add to that too, like the way the SGS funding is allocated to departments is they they basically provide a certain number of SGS allocations. So let's say it's 12. It's a bit first come, first serve. So if your student has applied and is in that list that is going to be considered, then they're, if they meet the certain criteria in terms of grades and so on, then they will be eligible. Now it's possible that not all of the funding is allocated, depending on however was allocated to your department. So there might be some funding left over. So you could sneak in a student who didn't apply by that deadline if there's still money available. There's still SGS support in your department. So, it's worth checking. If, for example, it's, I don't know, end of March and you identify a student who'd be great and you'd really like them to start in May, check with your department, see, is there still SGS support available at this time? And it's quite possible there would still be. So that's, something you just need to be aware of and check with your department. So there's a pool of these, and once it runs out, then it runs out for the year. But I know I personally have taken on students in that situation kind of at the end of a semester and kind of snuck them in so that they could start early the next semester, and it wasn't a problem.
That's a great point. I think in psychology, it's such a big group that we always run out. And in fact, there are students who don't get the SGS baseline because there's so many great applicants. But in other departments, that may be absolutely the case. And in all honesty, SGS does a phenomenal job taking care of students. And so if you beg and bug and plead and say, look, this student is awesome, please, they may find the extra little bit of money for you or scrape together for you. So not all is lost, but so please reach out to myself or Andrew or Dr. Warren, the Dean of Graduate Studies, if you are in that situation.
Sure, got you. Thank you, Jacqueline and Susan.
And
Sorry,
one more. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know as well that the SGS support is allocated to departments, but also to interdisciplinary programs. So maybe this would apply to some of you who maybe you have a student in one of these interdisciplinary programs that, they could take that program. If your department SGS support pool has been used up, you might be able to get them in through one of these other programs. And sometimes they actually give more SGS support to some of these programs than your department. So just something, again, to keep in mind if that applies. I don't know what your specific areas are, but it's just something to know if you have fallen in that situation.
I just had a question. So regarding the amounts, the funding one a student might obtain through a TA, is it of the same order as the SGS funding, or one is significantly greater or less?
So TA-ship, it depends. So every department does it a little bit differently, and it depends on how much. So there are some 60-hour TAs, there are some 80-hour TAs, and then there's some 10-hour TAs. And so there's not really, that's a really hard question to answer. So again, that would be speaking to your department head for a particular course and say, generally speaking, I want my student to TA for this course. How many hours are allocated in the past? And then you'll get a sense of how much they'll get paid for that particular course or that TA-ship. SGS, I think it's 6 something for masters, 6,000 for masters, and pretty close to, I know we have a budget. Jen has been working on that. So I don't know, Jen, if you can speak to the budget of SGS baseline.
Yeah, so it really does vary by department, and we are going to share this information with you. I'll say computer science, I think we have a lot of computer science people here right now, and actually that's one of the departments we're working on getting a little more information from. But generally it seems to be around 4,000. But there is an hourly rate, so if you can find out how many hours, it's about $22.49 for a master's student and $24.79 per hour a PhD student would make per hour.
Thank you.
Any
I
other
see that Keith is here, and it's 10 o'clock, just to keep things rolling along. Keith, are you ready to present your stuff?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll start sharing the screen right now for the PowerPoint.
Okay, no worries. But, you know, if people have questions, I don't want to interrupt.
Anyone else have anything in terms of SGSS funding before we start here? It's all yours, Keith.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Keith Power, and I'm an educational developer and teaching consultant with the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. So you might hear of us as, you know, some people refer to us as CITL, other people might say CITL. Basically, our unit is responsible for supporting the teaching and learning here on campus, and we also help with a host of other activities. So I'm just going to go through some of the main services we provide. And then afterwards, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, or you can interrupt while I'm actually explaining something, whatever works for you. So online learning is, you know, we have a huge online learning platform here at the university. So a lot of our courses are considered to be fully online. And CITL helps with the development and the hosting of all of those courses. So if you're going to be teaching a course through online learning and you need some support, you would reach out to CITL. Depending, it doesn't matter whether it's technical support or pedagogical support, any kind of support that you would need, you could reach out to us. And just to let you know, I'm the point of contact for the Faculty of Science. I can't help you with everything or every question you have. But if you did reach out, I could put you in contact with the person that would be able to help you with whatever issue you might have. I might be able to help you with some, or, for example, the technical issues, I would pass you off to somebody else. If it's pedagogical, I would help you. So yeah, I just wanted to go through that. Technical resources and support. So again, this is, how to use Brightspace or WebEx or any other institutional technologies that we offer here at the university. You could just reach out to us for any help with that as well. And as I mentioned, educational sports and instructional design. So while we offer that for developing online courses, we can also do one-on-one consultations with you if you wanted to develop a new course or if you wanted to change up something in your course. That's everything from, how to design an assessment. Or if you want to implement universal design for learning, that's UDL, you can see there on the screen. So if you want to implement that into your classroom, to make it more accessible for students, you could reach out to me and we could work on that together. Also, there's different types of activities, any kind of learning activity that you wanted to dive deeper into, we can help you there. Also just want to talk about an instructional series that we usually offer every semester. So just last week, I sent out a list of the sessions that we'll be offering this past semester to Suzanne, and so you should receive that, and you can see that we have some of the sessions are targeted towards the more technical side, and then we also have different sessions on the pedagogical side. So as I mentioned, there's a session on UDL, there's a session on active learning. So those sessions are available to all faculty and staff across the university. They typically tend to be about 1 to 2 hours in length, and it's a good opportunity to just even learn a little bit more about teaching and learning, and to be able to develop and facilitate your courses. Can I go to the next slide, please, Philip? Thank you. Another service that we offer is media services. So, for example, you may want to produce a video as part of your lecture. And if you wanted to do it in a more professional way, you could reach out to CITL and they could actually help you with that production. We also have a lecture capture classroom. So if you wanted to go in and teach like within a classroom and then actually have your teaching recorded, so that you could upload it to your Brightspace shell, and then students would have access to that. Then you can actually, reach out to us, make an appointment, and they would set that up for you. So you can go ahead and, like I said, record if you just wanted to record one activity, or if you wanted to record a full lecture. Okay, so those are some of the things that you could reach out for. We also have support for teaching dossiers. So as you move through your career and you're going to be building up your teaching dossier and looking at, promotion, tenure, and any awards. So if you want to apply for an award, or if you want to, get help on how to develop that teaching dossier, again, you can reach out to me and I would put you in contact with the person who takes care of that. Also, any kind of teaching awards, as I mentioned. So if you are nominating somebody and you want some information on the process for that nomination, you can reach out to us and you would get that support. Or if you are actually applying to be the recipient, then again, you could reach out to us and we could walk you through the process of applying for that that award. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. CITL will be adding a new position very soon, and that individual will be an educational developer who's actually focused on the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. So that's SOTL, S-O-T-L. And basically what SOTL encompasses is doing research into your teaching practices and how they impact students. So this could be done at like an activity level, a course level, or even at a program level. But the main goal here is to look at and investigate an inquiry about how teaching is affecting students, and with the end goal being how it affects students. So if anybody is interested in learning more about SOTL, they can also reach out to me. If they have any questions about that or is something that interests them, please reach out. And the last thing I'll mention to you is the Teaching Skills Enhancement Program. And this is a program that we offer for graduate students. So it's a year-long course, and also for postdoctoral students as well. I shouldn't say students, but people that have postdoc positions. So basically, for the first semester, they go through a series of lessons and activities, and then for the second semester, they do a short internship, and they also learn how to do a teaching dossier as well. But if you do have a graduate student and this graduate student is looking at a career in academia, this would be a great course for them to take, to enhance their teaching skills. So that's basically CITL in a nutshell, but I will open it up to anybody if they have any questions. Oh, sorry, I got one last slide. Can you go back? As I mentioned earlier, I am the academic support representative for the Faculty of Science, so I would be your main contact to reach out to if you have a question. Now, if you know of somebody else in CITL that you can reach out to, feel free to reach out to anybody that you know or any department. But if you don't know who to reach out to, please just reach out to me, send me a quick email, and I'll get right back to you. One of the other things that I can do is, as I mentioned, is host professional developing training or discussion sessions, whatever works for you. So if you need a one-on-one consultation, or if you want to have a small group meeting on a particular area of professional development, just let me know. And as I mentioned, I am like a liaison between CITL and the faculty. So I'm that connection point if you do have any questions. And I'll finish up there. Thanks again, Philip.
Wonderful. Thanks, Keith.
No worries. No questions? Everything's all good? Perfect. And Suzanne just posted the schedule of the workshops. So if anybody's interested, please take a peek.
I'd like to just make a comment, if I might. Thanks, Keith. I would just like to say that when I was a graduate student, I did the Teaching Skills Enhancement Program, and I found it extremely useful. It covers a lot about the theory of learning and theories of teaching. So you learn a lot about the scholarship of teaching and learning and how students learn, and a plethora of methodologies to use, which I could only imagine I didn't teach during the pandemic. for which I'm grateful. But for trying to straddle teaching in class and teaching online and blending those methods, I would highly recommend. There's also a faculty version of it. Is there not still, Keith? Is there a version of the teaching skills program for faculty still, or is it just for students?
It's just for students at the moment. The one for faculty has been put on pause. And I'm not sure when it will be back or if it's going to be back, but that's something that we're working on. We also have another program, again, this one's on pause as well, where it's about supervising graduate students. So it's a course for faculty that specifically looks at, you know, the things that you have to consider when you're going to be supervising a graduate student, and how, you know, the processes that you should go through, such as supporting them, you know, in finding funding, or whether it be helping them to learn how to write a research report. We often take for granted, you know, they came out of their bachelor's degrees and they have this idea of what research is, and they should be able to go ahead and do this stuff. But the reality is that they still need a lot of support and, you know, mentoring to be able to get over some of those hurdles. So yeah, I do teach graduate research methods, and it's something, yeah, that it's important to realize that, you know, it's something that they do need a lot of support in, especially from their supervisors. So, but that is it was an award-winning program, and we haven't, I'll just go back. I just started with CITL about 1.5 years ago, and that was right before, you know, the university shut down. So I think some of these programs stopped because of that. And hopefully now in the near future, we'll be getting some of them back up and running.
Thanks.
I know SGS has some brown bag lunches on how to be a better supervisor, or things that are you should know if you're going to supervise graduate students. But an actual course on, you know, probably different topics each week would be really helpful for sure.
Yes. Anything else, anybody?
I'm going to loop yours, Keith, together with our role in in the grants facilitation office. I see a lot of what you do as actions that can be taken for equity, diversity, inclusion, which anyone currently writing their discovery grant will know that's a very important section of the grant application, that they must address equity, diversity, inclusion, and take actions that support that, and involving your students in programs that ensure their equal access, participation, and support their success, such as the programs that you mentioned, are all actions that, you know, all of you out there who are writing your discovery grant, those are things you can write into your HQP training environment and philosophy. So talk to Keith about those too.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just going to add one short thing here from the perspective of somebody who has been a supervisor to students who took the graduate program in teaching. It's been really good. One of the benefits that you get as an instructor is that they do 3 of your lectures. So they, or depending on what your schedule is, but they come in and they deliver lectures, and they're fantastic. They really learn all kinds of nice techniques to engage the students, and the students in the experiences I've had have really, really learned a lot from having these grad students come in and participating through this program. So I do highly recommend, if you have that opportunity. It's great. It gives you a break. It gives the students a chance to learn from somebody other than you during the semester, which is always kind of nice. Yeah, and it's great for your students' CVs as well. Good experience for them.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of how the program has grown and expanded just in the last couple of years. I think actually maybe the pandemic had something to do with this as well. But a couple of years ago, they were just offering one session of this, so it would be like 25 students. And then last year, they ended up giving 2 different sessions. So we had 50 students. And this year, now we have 3 sections starting. So that's 75 graduate students that will be going through the program this year. And I'll be teaching one of those sections, and I'm already getting emails from the students. They're very eager to learn. They're great students. I think it's something that gives them a connection also to the university. They get to meet and work with other people, other graduate students, and learn from them. So I think that's an important piece too. It's just that, you know, graduate work can be a lonely process sometimes, and this gives them a platform to actually work and be with others. And I think that's important. All right. Well, I will pass it back. If anybody does have any questions, you can just pop them in the chat. I'll hang around for a couple more minutes just to see. And if not, like I said, you can always send me off an email. I'm happy to have a chat and, you know, talk about teaching and learning. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Keith.
You're welcome.
So we're scheduled for a 15-minute break here now. We can reconvene at 10:30 Newfoundland time. And I believe Lynn will be presenting on grant applications. So we'll see you guys in 15 minutes.
Thanks, Phil.
Hey everyone, it's 10:30, so welcome back. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to stretch their legs and get a drink or use the washroom. Lynn, are you ready to begin?
I am ready, thank you.
Perfect. So we'll get going with that. I will change the slide to you.
Thanks, Philip. I guess I won't, Philip, that slide, I guess, is just there for background. I'm going to discuss what the grants facilitation team can provide for you. So I think we've already introduced ourselves, but this has been a lot of information, so it bears a little bit of repeating, I suppose. So the grants facilitation team includes our Associate Dean, Jacqueline Blondell, 2 grants facilitation officers, that's me and Jen Major, and Philip McCallum, our grants facilitation assistant. So our job is to work with you to fund your program of research. Jacqueline talked a little bit about that. So our goal is to help you, not just to put the final touches on the application, but to help you to plan for and build what we've called a diversified portfolio of research funding. Because there are many funding opportunities out there, and the more you can get and gather, the more support you can provide to your program and to your HQP. So that's our goal, is to help you to diversify that portfolio to sustain and ensure the success of your research program. And that includes the training of your HQP, your students. So we can help you to identify sources of funding. That might be INSERC, SSHRC, CIHR, MyTax, CFI, or a multitude of other internal and external funding programs. And also, of course, to help you put together the best possible application. So if you haven't already done so, and I know we've met some of you already because you have already reached out to us about your discovery grants that are coming up. But if you haven't already done so, I'd like to encourage you to meet with us, one of us or all of us, to discuss your planned program of research. Tell us a little bit about your research so that we can be aware of the kind of work that you do, so we can be on the lookout for any specialized opportunities that might be available for you, specific funding opportunities that might fit your program, and also to work with you to think about how you might support your HQP through your research programs. While we share the workload among ourselves, there is a first point of contact for each department. So if you're in biochemistry, biology, chemistry, computer science, ocean sciences, your first point of contact is Jen Major. If you're in earth sciences, math, stats, physics, physical oceanography, or psychology, I'm your first point of contact. But of course, at any time, feel free to contact any of us, including Philip and Jacqueline. So to the point of helping you to identify sources of funding, how do we learn about them and how do we share that with you? One of the main ways that we learn about these is through the Research Funding Database, which is hosted by Research Grants and Contract Services. And apparently it's quite popular. I've heard that people all across Canada use it. And probably Stina Kruger, who will be speaking after me, will tell you a little bit more about that. So that's hosted on the Research Grants and Contract Services website. Again, it's called the Research Funding Database. So I would suggest that you check with that regularly to see what's coming up that might fit your program. RGCS will also send out emails of upcoming opportunities, and we forward those to the departments through the department heads, as well as any other upcoming opportunities that we may learn about. So we also, we on the team also sign up for newsletters and mailing lists and follow major funders on Twitter and so on, so that we are made aware of opportunities as soon as possible. And we are also members of CARA, which is the Canadian Association of Research Administrators. So through CARA, we learn about a lot of opportunities, research funding opportunities as well. And we also receive training as grants officers. So we're always working on our own professional development so we can help you as best as possible. I would like to make the very important note of deadlines. So almost all funding opportunities have deadlines. There are some that are open, like the INSERC Alliance grant, for example. You can apply to that at any time. But for most, there is a deadline. The call is at a specific time and there is an associated deadline. So I would suggest that you be sure to check with us about deadlines, because the ones you need to be aware of are the internal deadlines. There's an internal faculty deadline, and if the application is going through RGCS, there will also be an RGCS deadline. So the sponsor or agency deadline is not the only one you need to be aware of. And the reason why that's there is to give us the opportunity to review and approve your application to make sure you meet the eligibility requirements and that you've produced a complete application. Also, there might be extra time needed if you need a letter of support from the department head or the dean or from the BPR's office, or if we need to check eligibility with other institutions if you have co-applicants and so on. So there's all kinds of reasons why we might need a little bit more time to approve your application. So generally it's 3 days for RGCS and 3 days for us, but it may be more. So don't assume that that's going to be the deadline. So please always check with us. For example, the discovery grants that are coming up, we have a very early deadline. The deadline to the sponsors is November 1st, but we would like to see your applications as early as September 15th so we can give you a good thorough review. How do we help with grant preparation? That's the other side of it. So our main goal here is to help you craft a complete and competitive application. We will know the guidelines well. So Jen, Philip, and I will have participated in webinars that are available. We often have access to, we have a stockpile here of past applications, both successful and otherwise. And oftentimes we'll have reviewer feedback as well. And we learn a lot from that and we can share that with you. Not the feedback in the specific application, but what we learned from those. We can apply that in our review to you. So we encourage you to submit your drafts to us early for review and feedback. So we may not be experts, and we won't obviously be experts in all of your areas, but we can say whether we have an understanding of what you're doing and why the work is important. And we can provide feedback on the structure, the organization, whether you've clearly communicated your research questions, your plans, your goals, whether your budget's correct and feasible. Have you explained well your HGP training plan, your knowledge translation plan? Are your benefits to Canadian taxpayers, for example, if that's the funder, are clearly communicated? Have you highlighted how it meets strategic priorities of the university or of the sponsor? Have you incorporated and addressed equity, diversity, and inclusion, for example? Is it well written? Is it error-free? And is it complete? Another way that we provide support is through the development of guides and resources, such as our EDI guide. So if you haven't already seen that, please ask for it and we'll be sure to provide it to you. It's also posted, you see it in the guide that Philip has sent out to all of you. There's a link in there to the EDI guide. That's the orientation guide that Philip sent out to you yesterday. There's links to lots of resources in there, including the EDI, and soon the budget guide that Jen is working on. We'll make that available to you as well. Another way we try to support your efforts is through our relatively new Launch and Learn series, which we call On the Menu. I'm not sure whether Jacqueline mentioned that already. We've had 4 sessions so far, featuring various speakers on different funding opportunities and other topics related to research and grant applications, equity, diversity, inclusion being the most recent one. So most of these are recorded and they're available on our Faculty of Science website. So please see the guide again for the link or go directly to the website. I'd like to just bring your attention to an important policy that you all need to be aware of as you plan for your research, and that's the Research Impacting Indigenous Groups policy, which is now in effect here at Memorial University. So if your work could impact Indigenous groups or happens on Indigenous lands, you'll be required to have an agreement in principle from the appropriate Indigenous groups. And that has to happen prior to approval for the grant application to be submitted. So we're actively working to learn more about this. We're on a steep learning curve here too, but we will work with you to help you to navigate that policy and procedures. We've included links again to the contacts and resources in the guide that Philip distributed, and we encourage you to contact us as well. So once you've followed the process of working on your grant application with us and it's complete and submitted, you're going to most times have to submit through the MUN Researcher portal, sometimes called Romeo. So if you don't already have an account on MUN Researcher portal, please do that as soon as possible, because that's the process by which you submit things for internal review and approval, in addition to if there's a sponsor portal. So oftentimes you have to do parallel applications that way. So you'll need an account. So if you do not already have one, again, look in the guide that Philip distributed, that orientation guide, and you'll find the link to that. So your completed application's been submitted there. It will circulate through your department, your faculty, and if it goes to RGCS, onto RGCS for final approval. And you'll get whatever approval you need, a letter, signatures, and so on in that manner. So at this point, you will now interact with RGCS. You'll be done with your pre-award process with us. And so on that note, I will turn it over to Stina and Brent with RGCS, as if anyone doesn't have any questions about that part.
Well, good morning.
Hi. I'm sorry.
I will let questions take place, and then when you're ready, Lynn, you can I can share the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Lynn. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Yeah. So Lynn, you mentioned that we need to also submit the applications through the MON internal research portal.
Correct.
So is that used for internal review? For example, we need to submit the application before the deadline you mentioned, like September 15th, or?
That's right. Yes. Now, if you're in contact with Jen, Philip, and I, we can let that sit for a little while, but that will be the process. So the MON Researcher Portal is the method by which you submit for internal review. So that's how your department head will access to review and approve, and how the faculty, so that's Jacqueline, how she will see and review and approve. And then it goes on to RGCS for their final approval. So it's sort of and it's a great way to access for yourself. It's a way to stockpile and save your applications and be able to access them in the future. And it's through that portal as well. Once they've been approved by RGCS, they'll sort of sit there and wait for your approval, and any post-award processes would also happen through the researcher portal. It's how your account will be set up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Lynn, I have a question. I was told I have to email someone to set up my access to my research grants through Romeo. Is that the case? Because I've tried to log in through the researcher portal myself using my credentials, and I haven't been able to get through.
Okay, so there is a link. I can send that to you after, Eric. Or you can find it in that orientation guide. You should be able to find it there. Or if you just go on the MON website and Google RGCS portal, you'll find a way there too. But I can send it to you. The easiest way would be for me to send you exactly where you get on and apply for an application. Apply for an account, I mean.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Brentons. Would one of you guys like to share your screen? I'm not sure who's speaking first, or if you guys have the same slide deck, but feel free to share your slides and present your stuff.
Stina's in charge.
Wonderful. Good morning. Thanks, Brent and Philip. So what I'll do, I will share a presentation that we have developed covering RGCS services, and it touches on a lot of points that Lynn just covered as well. So just bear with me here. Everyone see this?
I don't see the slide. We see the presenter view.
Okay.
I think there's a toggle.
Can you see this?
So it's not full screen. I think you just have to switch the displays.
Yeah, my double screen there, Brent, is causing a little issue. Apologies. Brent, do you know the quick link for full screen?
I'm not sure, but I think you can switch it once you full screen it. So
okay,
if you make it go full screen, then I think you can switch which display is the presenter one. See, oh, it's working now.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me go to the
at least it is to me, so it should be for everybody else.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. Okay, great. Welcome. Apologies for the technology delay there. Still learning. So as mentioned there, my name is Stina Kruger. I'm the manager with the pre-award services at RGCS. And I have with me here today, Brent Myron, Associate Director, Post-Award Services, RGCS. So what I'd like to do today is cover what we offer at the office and how you would be integrating and communicating with us at different times. So first, I just want to let you know where we're located on campus. Being the new semester, I can imagine some of you are remote and some may be on campus. So for the St. John's campus, we're right in the middle. We are at the Bruno Center for Research and Innovation. In addition to our physical location, our GCS is also piloting a 1-year work from home. So we do have a blended model. We have some people in the office and we have some people working from home. We are reachable by phone, email, and in the office at various options and to reach you. But I just wanted to let you know that in case you come to the office and there's only a few people there, we are still fully operational. And we have been through all of COVID as well. So who are we? We are a one-stop shop for research administration. And those really come in a variety of different teams. So we have the pre-award services with those grants and contracts. We have technology support, award and honors, and major research partnerships, which we call MRP, and the CREATE network. So what I'd like to do is just dive into each one to give you an overview of what they are. So for the pre-award services, as I mentioned, it's grant and contracts. So as Lynn touched base, really encourage you to reach out to your unit faculty and your grants facilitators to work on the application from concept to award. But our staff is also available as well to provide support. And we work closely with the grants facilitators and the units. We do provide that approach to all funding for research, whether it's contracts or grants. And that includes now CRFIs and CRCs. So that's a new change, which I will touch on a little later. Within the pre-award services, we have two main groups. So those are the grants and the contracts. Within the grants, we have external grants. That would be tri-agency funding, NSERC, CIHR, SHRC, among others. And we also have internal funding. So it could be the Faculty of Science internal awards, the President Awards, and those are handled and adjudicated within our office. The contracts team handles more complex partnership applications and contract negotiations for research projects. And just a reminder about the deadlines. So there is, as Lynn mentioned, the minimum of 3 working days. So if there is a holiday, there will be an additional day tacked on to that time frame as well. So our minimum is 3 working days in addition to anything that the unit has added for their review. We do have to adhere to the external sponsor deadlines and time submissions. The minimum is for 3 days, but it could be extended to 5 or 7 depending on the complexity. Sometimes with international or time change differences as well, we need to move that deadline. The deadlines are fully available on the funding database website. You'll be able to see the external deadline and the RGCS deadline there. Then you'll be able to connect with the unit for their deadline. If you don't see it on the funding database, please reach out to your grants facilitator and we can coordinate with them to ensure that you're aware of the timelines, and also we'll get the website updated as well. As Lynn mentioned, there are sometimes emails that we send out for information that may not be posted on the funding database, but we want to share information and this may impact deadlines, so please be aware of those. Diving into the contracts. So you may come across grants, which is obvious to go through the research office, but there may be scenarios or situations where you're working with collaborators or partners, and you may come across certain agreements or contracts. And the most common types we see are ones I've listed here. So they could be sponsored research, collaborative, clinical study, which I don't think you'll see much of in your areas, but wanted to list it, non-disclosure agreements, data transfers, material transfers, subcontracts, and even amendments. So they all come through for institutional review and approval and negotiation. The difference being contracts from grants is that a research officer from the contracts team will work with you from the start of the process. So once you have added the workflow coordinator as part of the process in the researcher portal, a contracts officer will be credited to your file and work with you on that information and developing and negotiating that contract. So whether you need one developed from scratch using a memorial template, or if you've received one from a partner that you want negotiated or to be signed, we can work with you in that process. But we do work with you before you submit. So it's at early stages rather than the grant process. And if you have any questions, or if you're not sure if it should come to our office or should be entered in the researcher portal, just reach out to grants facilitator or a staff member, myself as well. So we do offer extensive services. So I just wanted to kind of break down and list some of them with some information. As mentioned, institutional review and approval. They cannot be signed by other designated units or faculties unless it is unit submitted. Sometimes, as Lynn mentioned, there is the letter of support required from the VPR as well. So there's extensive list of institutional review there. That also applies to co-applicants on externally led applications. So if you have any questions about those, please touch base with us or your grants facilitator. As mentioned, we do administration on internally funded grant programs, negotiating contracts, and we are the main liaison for the tri-agency and other partners in the agencies. Once we have a fully approval or award letter and we want to set up the account, we draft a memo with all the details of start date, end dates, the value, the project title, all those details. And we will send that out by email authorizing the financial office to set up the account. So we do have two separate offices, us being the research administration and the financial office is separate. So once we've sent that authorization to establish the account, financial services will then take their steps moving ahead to establish that account opening. So once we've requested the establishment, it is leaving our hands as such, and it is in the financial services realm. As you're working through the researcher portal, you will see a tab that touches on certifications, and that could be human ethics, animal care, biosafety. And again, if you have any questions, we're certainly here to help. And as we've mentioned several times, the funding database is the research funding database. You can do a quick search on one website, and I do want to provide it here as well with the link. And this is for internal and external funding for researchers at Memorial. There is an email. Once you've logged on to the funding database, you can sign up for emails, and that will be sent out every Thursday evening with updates. Another section of our office is awards and honors. So that's really recognizing with outstanding achievements. We have internal research awards and external research awards. And we have a process for nominating through these. If you have any questions, please reach out and we can certainly discuss this process. As Eric, you were looking for an account for the researcher portal. So we have a technology support group that provides support. If you're not able to submit a request online, you can also reach them through telephone or email through rpsupport@mun.ca. They're available during business hours. They're a great help whether you have a technology issue about uploading documents, or if you're just not sure about what's the best option to fill out in a particular situation, they're there to help. If they're not aware of it, they'll certainly reach out to myself or someone else in the office to assist you the best way forward. Another division of our office is the Major Research Partnerships, and that's providing project administrative support for larger scale research programs. And finally, we have the Core Research Equipment and Instrument Training, or also known as the CREATE network. And that's maintaining multi-user equipment across campus. So we have approximately 500 users using that equipment yearly, and a majority from Faculty of Science. This is a large service that we offer, and Brent is the expert in this area. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Brent. And the more research funding means more business for our office. Your success is our success. We are here to help. We're here to help you through the process, and we strive to make sure that you're successful. Now we have two websites: Research Grant and Contract Services and Strategic Institutional Research Initiatives. Most recently, Vice Council Research Council has approved that SURI, the Institutional Research Initiatives, is to fall under the Research Grant and Contract Services as a merger to bring all services to a one-stop shop. So while this is operationally taking place, we do have some updating to do on our website. So in the meantime, you may hear a reference to SURI and RGCS. You may have two websites, but the information and the services is the same. We're going to be working towards updating all of our information and all of our websites as soon as possible, but as you can understand, that will take a little bit of time. If you have any questions about any areas of these, please reach out to our office, RGCS, and we'll be more than willing to help. Any questions?
Getting off scot-free, Tina, I think.
I'm just looking at the chat here. Okay, for the researcher portal account. So, and just to talk a little bit about the researcher portal account. So when you start an application or an event, event would be if you're adding something to a current file. But if you're starting a new application, as soon as you do, the most essential part is to add a workflow coordinator. So the way the system is currently, when you start a file, we don't have eyes on it. So the way we get to see it from our office is to have the workflow coordinator added as a team member. That person will then see the file, have a look at it, and then make sure that the most suited staff member within the applicable divisions and teams is added to your file. You'll receive an email with the point of contact, and you'll be able to connect with that person. So I just want to reiterate there that adding that person is the best way forward.
If I may jump in on you, Stina,
yes.
I'll just add to that Jen, Phillip, and I have detailed instructions on how to go about doing that, because while the researcher portal is the most expeditious way to get your application through and get it through department, faculty, and RGCS approvals and add all the documents you need, and it serves as a repository for you for your active applications. It can be a bit fiddly, and you have to follow things very, very specifically. So we have a set of very specific instructions. So the first time you put on an application, or the second, third, if there's some time in between, let us know and we'll share those instructions with you.
And Brent, where you do have to leave shortly, if there's any questions here today about CREATE, right now would be the best time if anyone had any questions. or as Brent mentioned, to reach out to him directly.
Yeah, I'll just elaborate real quickly on something Stina
Mm-hmm.
said. That the whole point of CREATE is that we manage equipment so that researchers don't have to. So we hire, skilled researchers who manage this instrumentation. These are, published experts in their own field. So don't be shy to check and see what we have. And if you're thinking about taking research in a certain direction, feel free to set up a meeting with one of the excellent professionals in CREATE, and they'll be able to walk you through, design an experiment for you, and get you going from there. We want to get as many students in there using the facilities as possible. Training is central to our mandate. So don't be shy to reach out to us. And with that, I have to run. So take care, folks. Hope to hear from some of you very soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Brent.
Brent.
Stina, for internal funding, there's a thing called research pools. Could you describe that a little more?
Sorry, can you say that again?
For internal funding, there's a thing called research pools. Could you describe
Yes.
that a little more?
So research pool accounts, do you mean?
Yes.
Yes. So the research pool accounts, when indirect costs, which is one of the policies that we have to adhere to at the university, when that is involved in a grant, a research grant, or an account, a percentage of that then will be added to a research pool account. So when you do have an account with indirect costs, I will loop in the internal grants coordinator in our office, and she will set up an internal account for research pool. And that's where finance will then allocate a certain portion of that indirect cost into that research pool account, which you will then be able to avail of.
Thanks.
And indirect costs, I would encourage anyone to look up the policy. It is applied, whether or not you've budgeted or not, it will be applied to the budget if it's applicable. The minimum is 25%. You can work with your unit or your faculty into discussions of another rate, but that is the rate moving forward. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out on budgeting or how to ensure that you've captured that minimum. Please reach out to your grants facilitators on that. That's quite essential. That's usually one of the holdups when we do get something that, if an application has submitted and it bypassed either the grants facilitators, your unit, or RGCS, which does happen, but if it has bypassed and indirect costs has not been included, it will cause a delay. That indirect cost will still come out from your budget, whether or not you've allocated it. So just to keep that in mind. Lynn, if there was something else that you wanted me to cover, please let me know.
I had kind of a question for Brent, but and I don't know, maybe you can cover this. Sometimes when researchers are developing their applications, they might need access to the equipment and CREATE. How do they go about requesting that?
That's a very good question, and Brent would probably be the best person. I'm sorry.
I'm putting you on the spot. Maybe you don't know the answer, but we do know that at least I want to put it on researchers' radar that is required, that they cannot assume that CREATE is available to them. They do need to negotiate access to it.
Yes.
And maybe there's costs associated with that.
That's correct.
They need to factor into their budget and so on. Yeah.
There's some information available on the SORI website right now. This merger announcement just happened just last week. So I'm still new to certain aspects of this office. That is a very good question, and I will find out for myself. But it's best to probably reach out to Brent on that aspect. My particular area is more of the pre-awards, but I would just recommend probably reaching out to Brent on that one, Lynn.
Again, at least we've got it on everyone's radar now. That's another process they have to follow. And you mentioned how new this merger is. So you will notice in the guide that we sent out, the introduction to new faculty, that we have CERI and RGCS as separate. So that will obviously have to be updated immediately, but that will be that orientation guide that we've provided to you, new faculty orientation guide, will be a living document and will need to be updated on a regular basis. So just be aware that that's the first update. But I guess for right now, Stina, it's not a big difference in how things are gonna go forward yet anyway.
Operationally, it will move forward as it is now, or as it was. And if you're not sure, just reach out to me. That's no problem at all. But everything else has been operating the same. It's just to try to make it easier of who do we go to for researchers, not knowing, should I go to CERI, should I go to RGCS? So now it's just all under RGCS. But if you're working with a staff member under CERI or RGCS, please continue to do so. There's no interruption in service in any way. I know it's a lot of information today and a lot of information on what we do. So we will work with you. And if you have any questions, the one thing that all of us here at RGCS, what keeps us on our toes is the questions. So we have questions every day and new situations every day. So sometimes we've come across those situations and we know the answer right away. And other times we just have to take it away and find a solution. But we are here to help.
Thank you. And please extend our thanks to Brent. And I guess I'll let you off the hot seat, Stina, and turn it over to Gina, who's the Senior Administrative Officer with Faculty of Science, to discuss all things financial.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stina.
Thanks, Lynn. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Thanks for having me, first of all. And I'm going to chat a little bit about the administrative support available in the individual departments, as well as review some other topics that you should be aware of as a new faculty member. So the Financial Administrative Services, FAS, is the overseeing body of all of the university financial transactions. And there are a lot of policies covering financial matters, and I'll talk about a few of the important ones today. However, the most important thing I'd like to state is that the first line of support for any new faculty member is the admin staff specialist within each of your departments. They can answer most of the questions that you have regarding administrative matters, or at least they can find the information for you or direct you to put you in the right direction. I'm not sure of the departments where everybody's coming from, but I assume at this point you at least know the name of your admin staff specialist. 3. So to pick up on, I guess, where we just left off in terms of grant administration, RGCS takes the lead in establishing research grants, and then the admin staff person in each department will assist you with the administration of those grants. But it's still important to know that as a PI on grants, that you are still responsible for the day-to-day management of these grants, and to understand, what's eligible versus what's not eligible, that sort of thing. So for grant opening, and I apologize if this is repeated, since I missed part of the previous presentation, but for opening a grant, of course, all necessary documents are uploaded to Romeo, which is then reviewed by RGCS. And then once that information is approved by RGCS, then they'll send an email to FAS to request the grant to be opened. The signing authority will be established by the admin person within your unit. They'll receive the paperwork. They'll complete it for your signature, as well as department head and dean signature. Once that's received, the fund number will be generated and the funds are transferred. And sometimes this could take a week or two to get the grant number established, but it really depends on, I guess, even timing at the department level. So it is very important to remember that spending really cannot begin prior to the start date or after the expiry date of the grant. That would make expenditures ineligible. And also, I guess on the expiry date, one thing that we see a lot of requests for extending grants. So something certainly to keep in mind that you should think about, if you're nearing the end of a grant within a few months, if you feel that you're going to need to request an extension, that's something that you should initiate early on, rather than if you wait until a few weeks before. Sometimes the extension process may not take place in time. So management of the research grants really follows the Tri-Council guidelines, as well as MUN's internal policies. Several years ago, there was an audit completed by the Tri-Council, and it highlights some areas where administrative procedures need to improve in order to be compliant with Tri-Council guidelines. And based on that audit, there's been some recommendations that has come out in how we manage grants. I have included a link here to some training videos that FAS did. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to check to see if that link is still active, so I apologize in advance if it's not. But a few things to remember in light of that audit is that a PI, a faculty member, needs to provide authorization for all expenses in writing, including if there's a cost adjustments between an invoice and a requisition. And this could be a signature on a purchase requisition, or it could be an email that backs it up, specifically stating what they want to purchase and what grant it has to be charged to. And in the past, saying charge it to my grant, well, it's not acceptable, because even though the administrator and the PI may be aware of what grant that means, it's not really clear if there was an audit, if that was put as backup. So really it should state the grant number. As responsibility of the grant holder and the department admin staff to make sure that expenses are verified, reviewed, and confirmed to be in accordance with Tri-Council spending. And sometimes as well, you may be asked to provide justification for certain types of purchases, especially on Tri-Council funds. In particular, when it comes to computer related equipment, or equipment that, or items that can be used for not only this research grant, you might have to state how it's linked to the specific research. And those are items that your admin staff specialist, again, should be able to help you with, because they'll have examples of what would be acceptable. Another topic I guess I want to chat about is hiring staff or students on your grant. So whether it's a student or a staff member or a postdoc, it is important that that person does not start working until you have initiated all paperwork to hire the person and the paperwork is approved. If a person is working prior to that paperwork being submitted and going through the proper processes, they're not covered under Memorial's insurance policies until they have been formally hired, or even things such as workers' comp. So it is really important to initiate the hiring of anyone several weeks before you want them to actually start. Also important to remember that if ethics is required, and that ethics had to be in place in order for them to start working as well. Otherwise, that expense would be determined to be ineligible on your grant. And the hiring the hiring process is different depending on the classification of this person and whether they're a staff member or student. So something to keep in mind is that there are set rates of pay that's determined by the university, and that will depend on job classification. So an example would be, if you want to hire a research assistant, their classification may be an RA 1, 2, or 3, and that will depend on the type of work they're performing. So, and then in turn, that job title or classification will determine what their pay scale is. So it's really important to keep that in mind, and you just can't offer somebody, I guess, a certain amount of money. It does have to follow those classifications, those job classifications. And any staff person hired on a research grant is considered non-bargaining, and they will follow the non-bargaining handbook, whereas a postdoc appointment is confined by the collective agreement for postdoc fellows, which again outlines what even the minimum rate of pay is. In addition, when hiring a person or creating a budget to hire someone, you should certainly consult with the admin person within your unit, because the other important thing to budget for is benefits when hiring, and the length of employment will affect the rate of the benefits. If it's less than 6 months, the grant will only have to pay the basic CPP, EI, and workers' comp. But if the appointment is greater than 6 months, or if the appointment gets extended so that the overall contract ends up being more than 6 months, then the employee may be eligible for group benefits. So it means that the grant will have to pay for like medical or dental benefits, and the rate will be dependent on whether or not it's an individual plan or a family plan. And also any person that's hired as a staff member, so I'm specifically talking about like an RA or a science technician, those sorts of classifications, they will also earn annual leave entitlements. So if the person don't use their annual leave entitlements within their appointment, then that is something that will also have to be paid to the person upon termination of their contract. A lot of times you can request that the person use their annual leave entitlement within their contract, because sometimes vacation pay is not even eligible on a grant. So that'll, again, depend on the source of the grant. So you can ask that they use the annual leave within their appointment if possible. And again, your admin person can work with you on that. So sorry if I'm repeating myself on that, but it is very important to engage your administrative support within your department on all of these questions. So the next thing I want to talk about is travel. So I'll preface this with that, you know, a lot has changed with travel during COVID-19, obviously. And right now, I think international travel is still restricted. I don't think you can do any international travel, and even for travel within Canada, there might be a few additional steps. So before you book any sort of travel in these times, you should certainly contact your main person first, as well as look at the COVID-19 hub for information for travelers. So what I want to talk about now is basically the general policy, I guess, of when we operate in normal times, what will apply, and some of this will still apply now even to travel within Canada. So prior to traveling, a travel request must be completed and signed by the head of your department. This request should include an estimate of the cost and include the source of funds that will be paying for the travel. And keep in mind that this travel request is separate from an absence from campus form. If you wish to get a travel advance prior to traveling, that there's a separate form for that, which is a travel advance form. And then you must keep in mind that that'll have to be submitted, you know, several weeks prior to the date of travel if you want to get a travel advance. So eligible expenses for travel advance could include your prepaid things like your airline tickets and registration fees. Then once you return from travel, a travel claim A form will have to be completed, which will itemize your expenses and include original receipts for expense claimed, except for meals, which is usually a per diem rate. And that's usually the way I go. Very rarely do we see actual expenses put in for meal receipts. One important thing to keep in mind with regards to travel is that if you're traveling for work and then you're planning to maybe extend your travel for part of personal travel, like if you're staying, say, for a week after a conference, then you must provide quotes for your travel that reflect what the cost would be if you were only traveling to and from the conference. And then you'll be reimbursed at the lower cost. So this is something that you really have to do ahead of time, and usually at the time when you're booking travel. And again, your admin can provide some assistance there. And again, back to the justification and the tri-council audit is that you'll have to state how your travel is related to specifically to your research for the grant that is being charged to. The last thing I want to briefly touch on is PDTER, which is the Professional Development Fund. These guidelines are outlined in the monthly collective agreement, and all expenses will still fall under the guidelines outlined in the relevant university policy. For instance, if you're claiming travel on PDTER, you still have to follow travel policies. One thing that's different with regards to PDTER is that all expenses must be incurred by the faculty member prior to making the claim, and then you claim it against that PDTER on a travel claim A form. The claim must be made in the fiscal year in which you incurred the expense. So, you know, you can't like, and with PDTER as well, for travel, you can submit multiple claims, but for non-travel related items, you can only submit 2 of those claims a year, but you can have multiple items on that claim. So you need to keep in mind that if you're renewing memberships or buying equipment that's eligible on PDTER, to make sure you put those claims in before March 31st and the year that year that you've paid for it. The normal allocation is $1,600 per year, prorated in the first year you come, and then you can carry forward up to 2 years of your allocation to a maximum of $4,800. So again, I reference you back to your the collective agreement, which outlines all information regarding PDTER, or to ask your admin person questions on what may or may not be eligible and how to make a claim. So that was the majority of the points I wanted to touch on with regards to, I guess, administration, especially around grant-related matters. And I think Dion is after me, and he's going to talk more about the procurement and process for purchasing on grants. But I think Dion's after me. Lynn, am I right? Yes. Okay. So before we move on to that, did anyone have any questions around administration, administrative related matters, I guess, that we just chatted about, or I chatted about? No, all quiet. Okay, this is weird. I hope next year we can do it in person. Okay, that's the case. I'll sign off, but if anyone has any follow-up questions, you can certainly send me an email or reach out to your main person in the department.
Thank you, Gina.
Thanks.
All right, Dion Bennett, can we call upon you?
Hello, everyone. As Lynn just introduced me, my name is Dion Bennett, and I'm the Supply Chain Manager with the Faculty of Science. Our unit, our primary focus is to ensure the material and service needs of the Faculty of Science are met in a timeline required, adding value wherever possible through the procurement cycle. We strive to develop and maintain the processes required to support this goal, while also maintaining compliance with all applicable Memorial University government regulations. And we must work together in a fair and transparent manner as required by public procurement. So it's kind of important that I kind of highlight that section there, in that there's a lot when it comes to Memorial University in regards to being compliant. There's the internal requirements that are overseen by the FAS department, the Financial Administrative Services Group. And then there's also the provincial aspect, whereby we need to follow the Public Procurement Agency, or PPA, and those regulations. So we are the first point of contact when it comes to procurement for all Faculty of Science members. We can provide a lot of help and a lot of guidance in regards to that, ensure that a lot of those compliance issues are handled up front, and any questions are answered initially as opposed to down the road when it becomes an issue. Our unit, as it says here, throughout our planning and daily activities, we're committed to ensuring a safe working environment. Our unit also has a stores division. I'll get into that a little bit more detail in a minute. But we handle a lot of chemical and dangerous goods, both inbound and outbound. So that's one of our key focuses as well, is to ensure safety within our own group and also with the groups that we serve. In the slide there in the presentation, you can see that there is a web page where you can go ahead and look at that. There's some information there. There's our contact lists, emails, a bunch of information that you can go ahead and look at. I'm sure this presentation, if it hasn't already been sent out, will be sent out after the meeting. Also, we have 2 primary group emails. So for procurement, it's fwest.procurement@mon.ca. So if you have any procurement specific questions, that's the group to send it to. It's good to use that group so that basically if somebody's off on vacation, if there's any general questions, somebody can pick it up and run with it. Now, if you're dealing one-on-one with somebody in procurement, that's great. Continue that conversation. If that person is going to be off, I'm sure they'll let you know, and they'll put somebody else on the case or on the procurement issue, and then they can keep following it up while they're out. And the same holds true for fos.stores@mon.ca. That's a general email group for our stores group, as just mentioned. And what that deals with is all our internal on-hand stock. So we'll again touch more base on that in the next slide. Perfect. Okay. So kind of detail our two main groups here. The Fos Procurement Group, we're located on the second floor of the Chemistry Physics Building in room C2012. That's current. As you're all aware, I'm sure, there is a new core science facility, which is now opening. We will be located in core science facility 1151 for procurement services. Once that officially occurs, we will send out a notice to everybody, I'm sure in advance of it actually happening, so that people are aware that the date of the switchover. We don't have that now, but we will advise. And again, the main function of this procurement services group is to provide advice and services in regard to procurement. We're the first point of contact, as mentioned. We facilitate large, small purchases, open calls, exemption forms, purchase orders. We'll help with requisitions, etc. One of the main points I'd like to stress is the need to prepare in advance, to give advance notice, especially when there's specialty purchases that are required. There's something where the vendor needs a long lead time. The money involved is such that it meets the threshold or it has to go to an open call, so it has to be posted. All these things will add to the required lead time. And the earlier that gets in our hands, then the better we can guide it through the process. So the person who basically has the requirement doesn't end up in a situation where they're not going to meet their deadline. That's always unfortunate when that happens. And we have seen it in the past, but like I say, we see less and less of it ever since we started doing these orientations. We've seen people more involved and more aware to come to procurement in advance and make sure that everything's in line to meet their needs. Our group, we're lucky within the Faculty of Science, our group having a procurement services and a stores group. Not all faculties have that type of a unit where they can provide a focus on procurement services and stores. And we work directly with various groups throughout the university to make sure that things occur as they should and they do meet all regulations applicable. We'll work with financial services, strategic procurement when it comes to open calls. So again, we're the first point of contact when it comes to your procurement needs. I've included a link to our MUN general policy there. So it's always good to go in as a new faculty member here and see what are the general regulations internally at MUN that need to be followed. So that's always a good idea to go and have a look at that if anybody is expecting to be doing grant purchasing or just purchasing in general. Some changes that have occurred recently in regards to public procurement. June 1st, 2020, provincial supplier preference of 10% was introduced. So this actually affects the award of open calls, or can affect the award of open calls. So briefly, what that means is that if there is a local supplier here within the province, then they can actually be awarded as the lowest cost bidder and still be up to 10% more expensive than the next lowest bid. So it's something to keep in mind, because we may have an award happen where somebody's questioning what's going on. This is not actually the lowest price. Well, that could be because that particular change or that particular rule is being introduced. So basically somebody's a local provider and they're getting that 10% supplier preference. Also, on October 30th, 2020, Memorial communicated in a joint managers meeting that thresholds had changed in regards to procurement. So now goods have increased the open call threshold from what used to be 10,000 now to 25,000. So that was a really good thing for us. It was $10,000 for decades, and it was really just too low. So that move to 25,000 was great. A lot of things that really didn't need to be going to open call have been eliminated. But as it stands now, we got 25, which is great. Services remain at 50,000 as a threshold, which was prior to that change for goods. And I'll also note that the reporting requirements have remained the same. So for our purposes, we still need to report many purchases that are between the 10,000, 25,000, but that would be transparent to a lot of the end users. So we take care of that portion. If I could get to the next slide. Fantastic. Now moving on to our FOS stores operation. Our FOS stores are located on the first floor of the chemistry building currently, room C 1016. Again, as with our FOS procurement unit, we will be moving to the core science facility. In this case, for stores, it will be moving to 1109. And again, same as our procurement services group, we'll provide in advance a notification of when we will be moving physically. In stores, we carry many of the things for lab and related items, supplies, and chemicals. Pricing is right on the web page. So this, all the stock is ordered online. You can see the quantities that are there, and it's actually ordered through the Environmental Health and Safety System, or EH&S system. So I encourage anybody who's in a laboratory setting who has not set up their spaces, or perhaps they're inheriting a space from a researcher that's left, to get in contact with myself, with lab safety. You'll see some emails a little further down on this slide. And basically what they'll do is they will review your space and basically get you access to the system so that you can look at inventories, etc. They will then engage with me, and I'll make sure that you're set up and your staff is set up such that they will be able to order from stores and also requisition items that are not in stores for your ongoing needs. There's a link here as well, middle of the slide here. It's a direct link to the program. A lot of people will go to mymon.ca and they will see a tab. I believe it's on furthest on your right-hand side of that screen, and it will say EH&S Assistant. Many people access the program that way. That's great, because a lot of people are in MyMon frequently. But another way is you could bookmark this direct link. So, for example, if you lose a tab or you just don't want to go through the login, you can actually bookmark this link, click it, and it'll just bring you right into the login. And from there, you'll be right into the EH&S Assistant. A little bit quicker than going through MyMon if you're not already there. Again, as I mentioned, EH&S Assist, it's administered primarily by the EH&S, or Environmental Health and Safety unit here at MON. It's a permit-based system. So again, if you're a new researcher and you're inheriting a space, well, they will transition that for you. If you're a new researcher and you need to set up new space, they'll review the space with you, make sure that the electronic component gets set up as well. And at that point, then I'll make sure that the finance piece and the workers are set up in coordination with your administrator for your department. Just to talk a little bit about the system itself. The system will track hazardous materials with barcodes. As we bring it in, we barcode it. It goes in the system. When you order it from us, it will actually transfer to your lab. And the focus here that we're trying to, really push home is to maintain minimum required quantities in the lab and keep hazards at the lowest in the lab as possible, and also minimize disposal costs. We've seen many cases in the past where people order relatively cheap chemicals or dangerous goods, and they're brought into the system, sit for years, all the time having to be monitored for their risks, and then ultimately being disposed of. And that disposal cost then costing more than what the original chemical cost. And that's really unfortunate, because you're losing the money twice. You're losing it once when it's ordered and purchased, and then the amount of time that it sits taking up space in the lab and the risks involved, and then to have to pay even more money to dispose of it at the end, where that could be used for important research. So just keep that in mind. And again, the focus within the system is once you get the barcode in your lab from us, It will stay in your inventory until it's fully used. And then always remember to have somebody assigned or yourself, however you're set up, that somebody is responsible to go in and remove that barcode. And then so you won't be showing elevated levels of chemicals in your areas, and you'll be showing an accurate inventory. So it's easier just to keep that going as an ongoing basis, as opposed to trying to do it, once or twice a year, because it'll just become a nightmare. Do it as the quantities are depleted, and it will be much easier and much more accurate. One last point on this slide is new for 2021 was that we're actually moving to have all our items be able to be requisitioned online. Our stores already contains supplies and chemicals, but we're also moving to do the requisitioning, or the items that you're buying from vendors directly, to actually include supplies on that as well. We're pretty close to having that done, but we have had a bit of a bump in the road with COVID. A lot of projects have kind of been escalated and become urgent, and we've kind of been put on the back burner for that particular project, but we still have it moving forward. It is, like I say, probably more than halfway ready, and hopefully we'll be able to get that done, if not in 2021, sorry, in 2022. And I think that does it for this slide. Okay, great. I'm glad the slide is still in the deck. Very important. So all the things I've said are just exacerbated by the COVID-19 considerations that have happened. Keep it in mind. Internal MUM processing times in some cases have expanded as required. In other times, we've actually made things more efficient internally, but externally, vendors are having trouble meeting our requirements. So they're going to have longer lead time. Once we place an order, they'll have a longer lead time. They could be longer with the actual carriers themselves. So once they actually put it out, the carriers themselves are taking longer to actually get the material to us. So all this taken together makes the overall purchase, the time from purchase to actually getting the item in, longer. So again, keep that in mind for your planning. Mentioned here as well, external vendor performance. I just actually went through that. Product availability, sometimes things that were no issue, that were ready for stock at any given moment. Now we actually go to buy it and they're giving us weeks or months in lead time. So keep that in mind. Keep PPE, personal protective equipment, in mind. Make sure that you have enough on hand, and that you have enough on hand basically to meet the lead time that you're going to need to replenish. And as the last item here, I'll mention courier performance. This is one of the biggest effects. I've already mentioned it, but we've had many items where we've had items go missing. They've in some cases been recovered. In other cases, we've had to file insurance claims. Almost all carriers have removed their guidelines, or their guarantees, for delivery. So where you might see 2-3 day delivery, a week time delivery, a lot of those have just been outright removed now. When we go back and we're tracking an item for something coming in, we may get with the carrier, and basically they're saying, yeah, we're delayed, but there is no remedy in regards to you do not get the money back for the shipment. It shows up when it shows up. Ultimately, if it is lost, we can go ahead and file a claim in many cases. But again, suspension of refund policies, that's still in effect, and we're still being affected on an ongoing basis when it comes to inbound carriers. Also think about it on the outbound as well, because our stores group will prepare outbound shipments. So you may have research samples that are being shipped to a different university or is going to a company for analysis for whatever reason. There can also be delays in getting that there. So if it's got to be on dry ice, temperature control, keep it in mind, because you do not want your important research samples being spoiled while in transit. I think that pretty much covers off everything that I have, but I'm available now for any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Dion. Are there any questions for Dion?
For the EH&S assist, from my understanding, it's always been you need to be on MUN or be on a MUN VPN to access it. Is that still the case right now?
Yes. So if you are, that's a good question. If you are on site, you're fine. So if you're within the MUN IP umbrella, if you're anywhere on campus, that should go for any of our campuses. You can access without a VPN. You don't need a VPN to access. If you are outside the MUN umbrella, the IP, then yes, you would need to access. Well, you can do it two ways actually. You can do it through a VPN, so you can have software installed by ITS, and you log in, you create an encryption tunnel, and then you can access anything at MUN, including the EH&S Assist program. Another way, which I like to avail of, is I actually use my home PC and I remote desktop to my work PC. So that's another way. If you do it for some reason, the ITS tunnel can't work for you, you can actually remote in. Of course, you'll still have to know the password and may need some ITS assistance in getting that originally set up. But then from that point on, you should be able to log on to any computer on the network here. It will see that you're on the network and you can do anything as if you were sitting at your computer at work.
And do you guys coordinate with IT procurement, or do you guys refer people to the researchers to IT procurement if they need to avail them?
Yeah, no, both really. It depends on the situation. So we'll have a researcher come in, for example, for a laptop. And so laptop or a PC or something like that. So we know immediately that there's got to be at least a quotation. So it has to see it has to go pass over the desk of ITS. We do also get into gray areas where there's a piece of equipment coming and we have the question, is this within under the profile of ITS? And we will go to ITS. We're in that kind of gray area. One thing I can think of in the past was a set of virtual reality goggles, but that it had networking capability. So it's not a computer, but it has that type of capability. So we will oftentimes just touch base, or at least ensure that there is a quotation from ITS. Therefore, it's twofold. It's for they have a contract for many of the things that are IT related, and two, that they see it from a perspective of, does this work with MUN resources and does it follow MUN policy? So we don't police that, but we just make sure it goes over their desk to have a look at it. There have been several cases in the past where I won't say necessarily our faculty, but maybe, I don't know for sure, but definitely cases where people have gone out and purchased hardware with an intent to use it in a certain manner, and then they bring it on site or they begin to use it and it doesn't work and they're trying to figure out why. And then ultimately they look at it and say, no, this cannot even work with our network. It can't be work as intended. The software is actually blocked within the protocol of MUN, whatever the case may be. So the main part is so that we have it, it goes over, it goes on through their eyes and they have that look and they give it a, they have come back to us previously and go, no, we're not, this is not our area. It's not required. It doesn't require encryption, or it's not even applicable for encryption. So sometimes they just hand it back to us and we go ahead and buy it. But I guess the main point is that it does, if it looks like it falls under basically the special purchase authority of ITS, which means it's, hardware such as laptops, PCs, MacBooks, all that, iPads, that it does pass over their desk. So yeah, we work directly with ITS in those cases.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Did anybody else have any other questions in regard to ITS, sorry, or anything else related to procurement or stores? Okay, great. Like I say, with the presentation, there's a link there with that'll have all the people's contact information, including my own. Anybody who requires procurement, who requires access to stores, I encourage them now to reach out to the email addresses and as soon as possible, get that set up. So, as we get moving in this semester, you're not kind of held up and set up and that kind of thing. And great talking to everybody.
Thank you, Dion, very much for your time and all that information you shared. And thank you. I think we've come to the end. We have no more speakers, do we, Philip? That's everybody?
No, that's it.
That's it.
Thanks to all speakers today, and thanks for all the new faculty for your time and attention.
And if you have any questions, as you digest this ton of information that we've given you this morning, I hope you found it helpful. Please reach out to Philip or Jen or me or Gina or Jacqueline or Dion or any of the other speakers that we've had. There's lots of services at Memorial University that we weren't able to cover this morning. We had Andrew speak briefly about SGS, but there are many things that SGS offers. Student life, for helping your students, serving your students, providing programs that support their full participation, their success. Student life is the place to go. You'll find a link to that in that guide that Philip distributed. Also, I'd just like to mention Student Wellness and Counseling Center. Again, that's another service that we weren't able to fit into our schedule this morning, but you'll find a link there as well. So if your students are having needs for any kind of health or mental health services, that's the place to send them. And I think, well, there's lots of other services, Keith as well, Keith Power, for your teaching and supporting your graduate students in their as they develop their career teaching skills. He's the place to go for any information there through CITL. So if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to just thank you all for attending and wish you good luck and welcome you to Memorial.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.